Well, good morning. Welcome to The Orchard Online. My name's Chip. I'm the lead pastor here at The Orchard, and I'm glad that you are taking time to stay up to date if you're having to miss this Sunday because of the holiday weekend, or if you're checking us out for the first time, glad that you're doing that as well. If you are checking this out for the first time, let me just let you know that what you're going to see is just a glimpse, a taste of who we are at The Orchard. For a bigger picture, you need to come to one of our in-person locations in Lake City, Live Oak, or Branford. Our location pastors would love to meet you and help you get a fuller experience of who we are as a church and what we're trying to do. That said, today's message is going to do a good job of helping you get an idea of where we're headed, what our heart is, and how you can join us. So I'm excited to share this week's message with you. Let's jump right in. So Impact Tomorrow, that's something that you've heard about for a while. It's something we've talked about for a while and really kicked back up here a few weeks ago before Easter when we released the first edition of our Impact Tomorrow book. And I love that book, right? It was a visible, physical, tangible representation of who we are as a church and who we want to be. It was pictures of where we've been and where we're going, and it was so exciting to flip through those pages and relive that story. But Impact Tomorrow is so much more than a book. That's not what Impact Tomorrow was designed to be. That book was just there to help you get a picture of Impact Tomorrow. From the beginning, Impact Tomorrow was designed to be an engagement initiative. A way for each of us who call the Orchard home to engage in the mission and vision of the Orchard so that we can continue to grow up. That's what we talked about several months ago, that it was time for the Orchard to grow up. As we are entering into our 18th year, we need to grow up. And that's not, throwing shade on who we've been in the past 17 years. It's not downplaying what God has done in the past 17 years. In fact, God has done some incredible things. He has seen growth and maturity, a change of the way they look at the world and the people who call the Orchard home, seeing them really love God by loving people, maybe for the first time. He's seen the Orchard engage in local missions and global missions. We've seen baptisms. We've seen marriages restored. We've seen life change. God has done some incredible stuff, but we believe that He wants to do more. And we want to say, all right, we're not just going to be here for now. We're not just still figuring it out as kind of that adolescent church anymore. We want to grow up into maturity so that we can reach further than we ever have. That's because where you reach to is going to be determined by where you're reaching from. What do I mean when I say that? Well, I've got some pictures that maybe help explain that, at least what goes on in my head when I think about this. When I think of that idea, where we reach to is determined by where we're reaching from. I get pictures in my head like this, right? Like you need a ladder, but you also need a little bit more than the ladder can do. And so that foundation isn't real stable, but hey, we're reaching out. Or one like this where I'm not sure that OSHA doesn't stroke out if they see this picture, but, we're reaching to where we need to reach. Favorite part of this picture also, guy with the light bulb in his mouth on top of this massive ladder. Or maybe the picture that I think was most representative of the Orchard is this. We are going to use whatever we have, however we can, to reach where we need to reach. And hear me, I love the pioneering spirit behind this picture. I love the idea that for the first 17 years of the Orchard, we were not waiting for us to have it all figured out. We were not waiting for our I's to be dotted or our T's to all be crossed before we began to love God and love people, to reach into our communities, to share the gospel. No, we said we're going to build this plane on the fly. We are going to do what we have to do with what we have, whatever it takes. We're going to get it done. And I love that pioneering spirit that has been at the heart of the Orchard. But entering into our 18th year, I think if we're going to continue to reach further than we ever have, it's time that we give some attention to what we're reaching from, where we're reaching from. And so Impact Tomorrow really is about extending our reach by stabilizing our foundation. We want to continue to reach further into North Central Florida, to impact more communities and more families and more individuals, because we are going to stabilize and strengthen and grow the foundation that God has given us to reach from. And what that looks like is us expanding our missions partnerships, both locally, regionally, globally. It looks like us giving some attention to expanding current facilities and building new ones. It looks like us adding new staff members to our team, not to fill positions that we already have, but to staff for growth and anticipation of the reach that we're going to have as we continue to move forward into the future. So Impact Tomorrow is this engagement initiative all about expanding our reach here in North Central Florida by stabilizing the foundation that we already have. And so the reason behind all of this, though, the way that we're talking about this as an engagement initiative ought to give you a clue of our heart behind it. And here's what I believe, okay? What I believe is that the only way that we as a church are going to impact tomorrow, the only way that we are going to impact lostness in North Central Florida for generations to come is not by me taking a next step or by Pastor Eddie taking his next step or Pastor Matt taking his next step. It's not by our staff taking their next step. The only way that we are going to impact tomorrow is by each of us, me, you, all of us, taking our next step and committing to the mission together. Really, what Impact Tomorrow is it is a call for us who call the Orchard home to say, you know what? It is time to get invested. It is time to get invested. It is time to take that next step. So, if you got your Bible, go with me to Matthew 25, because Jesus himself teaches about this and the importance of it. And in Matthew chapter 25, Jesus is teaching his disciples in a parable. And it starts out like this. He says, "For it, the kingdom, is just like a man about to go on a journey. He called his own servants and entrusted his possessions to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent, depending on each one's ability. And then he went on a journey. Immediately, the man who had received 5 talents went, put them to work, and earned 5 more. In the same way, the man with 2 earned 2 more. But the man who had received 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 talents approached, presented 5 more talents, and said, 'Master, you gave me 5 talents. See, I've earned 5 more talents.' His master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Now share in your master's joy.' The man with 2 talents also approached. He said, 'Master, you gave me 2 talents. See, I've earned 2 more talents.' His master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Share in your master's joy.' And the man who had received 1 talent also approached and said, 'Master, I know you. You're a harsh man, reaping where you haven't sown and gathering where you haven't scattered seed. So I was afraid and went off and hid your talent in the ground. See, what you have is yours.' And his master replied to him, 'You evil, lazy servant. If you knew that I reap where I haven't sown and gather where I haven't scattered, then you should have deposited my money with the bankers, and I would have at least received my money back with interest when I returned. So take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has more will be given, and he will have more than enough. But from the one who does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. And throw this good-for-nothing servant into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." So, this parable, this teaching of Jesus, is referred to as the parable of the talents. And it's obvious, right? Because it's a story of a master who had talents, possessions, resources, and he gave them to his servants to put to good use. Now, this talent was a monetary sum, not just a talent like you and I would think. And that's where this idea of investing comes in, right? Let's just look at it again together. A couple things that I want you to notice as we read back over this section. He says, for a man, it is, that it here, to be clear, that it is the kingdom of God. He said, for it is just like a man about going a journey. He called his own servants and entrusted his possessions to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to one another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent, right? So the first thing I want you to see here is that these are the master's talents. These are the master's resources. These are the master's possessions, and he is entrusting them to his servants. And then the way that he entrusts them to his servants is by giving to them each differently. It says that he gives based on each one's ability. So he gave one 5 talents, he gave one 2, and he gave another 1 talent. And I think something within us screams, well, that's not fair. They should have all gotten equal amounts. But the master, I think, proves his wisdom when he sees the results at the end. Because what do we see? We see that immediately, right away, without hesitation, the man who had received 5 talents went and put them to work. He put them to work. He invested what he had been entrusted in anticipation of the day that he was going to have to give an account. He invested with what he had been entrusted. It said, in the same way, the second man did the same thing. But the first man, or the third man who had received 1 talent, he went off and he dug a hole in the ground and he hid his master's money. So he didn't do any work, right? He didn't do anything to invest this money. He just hid it. And then we remember the story. The master comes back and the first man says, hey, I had 5. I invested it. Here's 5 more. Master says, well done, good and faithful servant. Second one comes in and says, you gave me 2. I invested it. Here's 2 more. He says, well done, good and faithful servant. But the one who had received 1 talent approached, and what he does is something that we see all the time in our world today. He plays the victim. It's not his fault. As a matter of fact, if you notice what he does here, he takes the blame off of himself and he throws it back on the master. He says, Master, I know you. You're a harsh man, reaping where you haven't sown, gathering where you haven't scattered. So I was afraid, right? So you, so I. It's not my fault. I went off and hid your talent in the ground. He said, see, what you have is yours. But see, this servant missed the point. This servant did not understand the point of what the master had done. You see, the master was not concerned with the total amount of his investment when he returned. You know why we know this? Because the one who had 5 talents and brought 5 more, he was just as pleased, said the same thing to that servant as the one who was given 2 talents, and he brought back 2 more. The idea here wasn't, I want to know how much I have gained. I want to know how you've used it. And so the point here is how, not how much, right? The point is, how have you invested? How have you used what I have entrusted to you, not how much do I get in return? And so the reason that 2 of the servants were commended and celebrated is because of how they used the talent. They invested it. The one who did it is the one who received punishment. Now, the connections shouldn't be hard for us to see at this point, right? Jesus has given us each talents to invest for the growth of his kingdom. Just like the master and the servants, Jesus has given us talents, and not all of those talents are the same. Now, am I talking here about the amount, just like the 5, the 2, and the 1? Well, yeah, sure. But also the type of talents we have been given are not the same. Some have been given financial resources. Some have been given a generous spirit. Some have been given hospitality. Some have been given faith. Some have been given love. Some have been given the ability to speak. Some have been given the ability to sing. Some have been given an extraordinary ability to serve. We've all been given these different talents for the growth of the kingdom, but they don't have to look the same. Because Jesus knows what we need for how he intends to use us. And so the point for us is not how much fruit are we going to bear with the talent that we have, but how are you going to use it? Again, the point is how, not how much. The point is not how much fruit are you going to bear? How much return are you seeing? The point is how are you using it? You know why? Because at the end of the day, how much is to a great extent out of our hands. We read very clearly in the New Testament that it is God who gives the growth, Paul says. Jesus himself says that if we abide in him, we will bear fruit because apart from him, we can do nothing. So it is Jesus who uses our talents to bear fruit. It is Jesus who uses our talents to grow a harvest. So the point for us is the how, not the how much, because the how much is ultimately up to Jesus. But that's still not an excuse to not see fruit, return on investment in our lives, because we believe that Jesus will bear fruit in our lives when we follow him, when we abide in him. And so if we aren't seeing any return in our life, it's probably because we're not invested. How, not how much. If you're not seeing a return, if you're not seeing fruit, if you're not seeing growth, it's probably because you're not invested. Now, here's the thing. I know that you want to be invested. I know that you want to see the kingdom grow. I know that you want to make an impact on tomorrow through what you're doing today. And so what I want to do is spend just a few minutes talking with you about 4 ways that you can invest in the kingdom and take your next step to help us as a church impact tomorrow. Just really quickly, 4 things. The first is this: you can live as an informal missionary. Now, we're going to spend a whole lot of next month talking about exactly what this means to live as an informal missionary. Really quickly, it just simply means that we want to invest in the lives of others. We want to invite them into our life, into our church. We want to share what God has done in our life and share the good news of the gospel. And then we want to sacrifice, living sacrificially for the good of others. An informal missionary is someone who says, I see you and you matter. You matter to me and you matter to Jesus. If you want to invest your life in the kingdom for kingdom growth, live as an informal missionary. Wake up every day seeing yourself stepping on to the mission field. Whether it be at school, at work, wherever, you can make a difference when you live this way. But again, we're going to talk about that a lot more in this coming month. But the second thing you can do is saying, yes, I want to live as an informal missionary. And by the way, I think everybody can live as an informal missionary. But maybe you say, Chip, I don't want to just live as an informal missionary. I want more. I want to go above. I want to go beyond. Well, then what we would invite you to do is to become an impact ambassador. An impact ambassador is one of 2 new teams that we're going to be creating to go along with our Impact Tomorrow initiative. And here's what we're asking impact ambassadors to do. We're asking impact ambassadors to be a team of service-oriented men, women, and students at the Orchard who are willing to be the first boots on the ground to move the mission forward. Maybe that is disaster relief, and you're saying, I'll run a chainsaw. Maybe that is feeding hurricane victims, and you're saying, I'll pass out a meal. Maybe that's going into a community and saying, I will do a Bible study for these kids that appear to be overlooked and forgotten in our communities. Or maybe it's just saying, whatever the question is, whatever the task is, whatever the mission is, my yes is on the table. Those are our impact ambassadors. Those who are willing to go above and beyond with their time and with their energy to make an impact in this region for the sake of the mission. Because impact ambassadors, they are our vision activators. They are the ones who take this vision of impacting tomorrow and impacting lostness in a region, and through their hands and their feet, their time and their tears, they make the vision happen. They activate the vision in our communities through our locations. Vision activators, impact ambassadors. The third step is another thing that everyone can do, and that is taking your next step in giving. Maybe you have been coming to the Orchard for a while and you've never heard us talk about giving. Well, it's because we don't often. However, it's important for you to know that what we do here as a church, everything that happens here as a church, from our normal Sunday experiences to mission trips to camps to evangelism, mission efforts, whatever, everything that happens here at the Orchard happens through your giving, your donations, your tithes, your offerings. That's how we're funded as a church. And quite frankly, if we want to continue to expand our reach into the region, it is going to take a greater financial investment. And so what we're asking of you is that you would consider taking your next step in giving. And those next steps are pretty simple. Maybe you've never given anything, it's never crossed your mind. Your next step would be to just give something. Just drop something in the box on your way out of your location today. Maybe you do give something. You give when you can, when you think about it. When we talked about the Pregnancy Care Center a while back, you gave to that. Your next step is going to be not just to give something, but to give regularly. To make this a habit, to say, you know what? I'm going to give every week. I'm going to give every month. I'm going to give every paycheck, whatever. But make it a habit. Maybe a lot of you do that. You do every week when you come in, you give something. And what we're saying your next step would be is, okay, go from giving regularly to giving intentionally. And we believe this is when we move into that biblical realm of tithing, that we're going to look at what we have been given in our financial resources. And at the first, we are going to set aside an intentional percentage of that to give to the work of ministry and mission. Now, the Bible sets a standard, a benchmark of 10%. That's what's called the tithe in the Old Testament. But maybe that is just too far of a leap for you right now because you've never done it. What we're not saying is that you've got to go from just giving something regularly to giving 10%. We're saying, hey, start at 3%, start at 5%, start wherever you can. What we're saying is make it intentional. Make it first. Make it a percentage. Do it because you're doing it, not because it's easy. Do it because it's important, not because it's convenient. And then that last step is moving from giving intentionally to giving generously. And these are people who would say, you know what? I have been giving 10% intentionally for a long time. I think I can do more. Giving generously is you taking the step to do anything you can to give above and beyond that 10%. Now, here's the thing. There are some of you who are in that position. God has blessed you financially. You have been successful in business, whatever. And we want to say, you know what? There's a place at the table for you to make an impact in what God is doing here at the Orchard too, because just like we have our impact ambassadors, the fourth step that you might take, if you're saying, Chip, I think I'm ready to go above and beyond in my giving, is to become an impact investor. An impact investor are those who say, I have been blessed financially, I have been blessed with generosity, and I want to join this generosity-focused team of other people who call the Orchard home as committing to give above and beyond 10% of my income for the sake of the mission. This team is focused on using the resources God has given them of finances, but also of stewardship. I know when you say stewardship in churches, it sets off alarms because we've been taught that stewardship means don't spend any money, be as cheap as possible, keep as much money in the bank as we can just in case the worst happens. But you know that's not what stewardship means. Stewardship means putting the resources that God has given his people in his church in the best place we can to make the best impact and bring the best return. That team is our impact investors. And just like our impact ambassadors, our vision activators, our impact investors are going to be vision accelerators. They're going to help us go further, faster. They're going to do that by helping fund the mission and fuel the vision. They have a seat at the table too. And so, the 4 steps that we said, right? 2, everyone can take. Live as an informal missionary, take your next step in giving. And then 2 are for those who feel like you want to do more, that you want to take that next step of going above and beyond. That is our vision, our impact ambassadors, and our impact investors. And here's what I love about those 2 teams that we're creating to come around this Impact Tomorrow initiative, is that through our impact ambassadors and impact investors, we're able to bring the power of hands and feet with the speed of finances and vision. And when you take power and speed and you put them together, you get impact. And that's going to make an impact in our community and in our region for years to come. And so, as you leave today, what we're going to have at the Impact Tomorrow table are 2 things. Number 1, it's going to be a little brochure telling you about the 4 steps that we just talked about. Your next steps in giving, becoming an impact ambassador, living as an informal missionary, and becoming an impact investor. You can pick this up and be reminded of everything that we just talked about. And then along with that little brochure, there's going to be a commitment card. It's going to be a place for you to say, I'm committing to move the mission forward. And you can say, hey, I'm committed to take my next step in giving. I'm committing to live as an informal missionary. I want to become an impact investor, and I want to become an impact ambassador. If you're ready today to take that step, I want you to take this card, fill it out, put it in the offering box, and we want to come alongside you, follow up. Number 1, say thank you for taking part in the mission. And number 2, help you begin to connect that to your life, connect with others who are doing the very same thing. So, if you're not quite ready for that yet, no worries. These cards and these brochures are going to be available for a few weeks outside. But if you're ready to commit today, I believe that God is going to use your commitment and the commitments of others just like you that call the Orchard home to help us as a church impact tomorrow through the things that we're doing today. Not for the name of the Orchard, not for our sake, our fame, our name, our glory, but for the good of our neighbor and the glory of Jesus. That's why we want to make an impact. Let me pray for you. God, thank you for the time that you've given us today to gather. I pray that you would use your word to convict us of places that we need to and are being called to take our next step. And God, that you would help us as a church to take all of these next steps that come from men, women, and students across our locations, to take all of those next steps and help turn them into one giant leap forward of impact here in North Central Florida. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, thanks for watching that and for hearing from my heart about what God has called us to do as a church. Now, obviously, if you're watching this online, you don't have a card or a brochure that you can pick up today. You can come and get either one of those in person at one of our locations next week, but you can also reach out to us online. If you go to our website, there is a Contact Us form. If you will fill that form out and let us know which step you are interested in taking, living as an informal missionary, becoming an impact ambassador, taking your next step in giving, or becoming an impact investor, we will have that conversation with you and help you get pointed in the right direction. I hope you can join us in person next week, but if not, we'll see you right back here at the Orchard Online.